Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to this Facebook Live discussion as a part of our HiPo week. I hope you've been enjoying all the discussions and conversations that we've been bringing to you as a part of this week-long initiative in partnership with Right Management India. And today we have another exciting discussion lined up. It is about HiPo programs and ROI. Is it really gripping the road? And we're excited to have with us Avinash Kohli, who's the head HR Boeing India. He's a graduate of GE's Human Resources Leadership Program and brings rich experience in HR strategy and business partnership. We also have with us Hardeep Singh, Vice President Consulting Services at Right Management India. He brings a very rich experience in helping organizations design and really manage large-scale organization and transformation projects. So welcome Hardeep and Avinash. It's a pleasure to have both of you here with us.
Thanks, Megha. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's begin this conversation with you, Avinash, as an HR leader, how have you seen the HiPo programs really evolving in the last 5 years? What has been your experience?
Well, in terms of experience, thanks for asking that question, Megha. So, I like you rightly mentioned, I've been part of such a program in the early part of my careers. So, I got a unique opportunity to be part of the HR leadership program at GE, and went through 2 years plus rotations across different businesses, roles, geographies, and was able to do an HRG role, a compensation benefit specialist role, and being part of the team at the global level. Used to manage executive development for the organization in a short span of 2+ years. So I think from an experience standpoint, I gained immensely from that exposure, and in many ways what I am today, it was very foundational for me as an HR person. So I think it was a great exposure for me, a great experience for me, and it's something which really benefited me as an HR professional. Now, how I've seen it evolve over, I would say, the last few years is around 3 things, I would say. One is around just the overall widespread use or implementation of such programs. So if you go back a few decades, just a few organizations like GE or IBM or P&G, HLL, just the organizations which had that focus on people development had these programs run in a very structured, institutionalized manner in their organizations. So I've seen that a lot more organizations have started to develop their own versions of such programs in-house. So that's one change that I have seen. The second change I've seen is just in terms of the kind of programs which are existing now. So essentially, I've seen the functions take a lead on such programs. So a finance leadership program or a sales leadership program, they have been there. So now I've seen that a lot of business leadership programs are also coming on track now. So where you take somebody, let's say, from a finance background and put them on a sales role, an operations role, or a manufacturing role to develop well-rounded business leaders out of them. I've seen that kind of moving the needle a little bit, and I would like to see a lot more of that, frankly. So just in terms of, just the functions and the scope of it, the breadth of the programs, that I've seen evolve. And lastly, around just the level at which these programs target in the organizations. So traditionally, it's been more at the entry level or early career level in the organization that one would target these programs for the intake. I've seen that organizations have started to also look at people who are at the mid-career sort of time frame in their journey, and also sometimes slightly more senior leaders as well, to look at, hey, what can we do to take them to the next level? They may not have gone through such a program in the early part of their career, but they still have potential. So what do we do to take them to the next level? So I would say across those 3 parameters, I've seen it evolve, and I see that it's going to continue to evolve in that way. Yeah.
Great. So Hardeep, on the 3 types of HiPo programs that Avinash just mentioned, how has been your experience in your conversations with the client as to what are the critical success factors of such programs? Like, what are the key elements for such HiPo programs to be successful in an organization?
Oh yeah. So in our experience of working with organizations, one just to add to what Avinash mentioned, what we've also experienced is significant shifts in the business leaders' mindset in India. And that shift is on understanding on how the HiPo program is solving for their future talent needs. There's this growing realization that developing talent internally, while there is a cost benefit to it, but more importantly, it helps the organization retain knowledge and ensure the culture which the organization is wanting to build. So, in the last 4 or 5 years, that's another big piece which we are noticing. And hence, like Avinash pointed out, you're seeing it flow down to various levels, right down to the junior most, middle level, and all those levels as well. So that's something which we experience. In terms of, coming to your question, in terms of what makes it critical to succeed, I think the questions remain still the same. It's just that the deployment of them has slightly changed. For example, selection continues to be critical in today's era. What is happening was, in the earlier era, that selection used to be very HR driven to begin with. And now, since business takes ownership of it, there are those pulls and pressures of business which come into play. So that's the other piece we see. So it's a balance between sponsorship and the science of the selection. So that's the tricky piece which we see right now happening in the market. We also see, in our view, what is critical is development. Development, there's been a significant evolution over the years. India specifically, significant amount of experimental development is happening. So not only is it experiential, there's a lot of experimental happening. So the appetite for the Indian HR leader, the Indian professional, the Indian HiPo to experiment with development as a system is significantly high. Be it immersing themselves in new organizations, be it picking up new projects like what Avinash experienced himself. So development is another one piece we see is very critical. The other path to criticality, I would say, is manager sponsorship. While leadership sponsorship is there, we see manager sponsorship is very critical to the HiPo success. Many organizations, while the HiPo program comes in, the manager somewhere is perhaps not aligned to it, or maybe is threatened, or maybe is not clearly communicated, or maybe is not aware of what is expected for him or her, and more importantly, what's in it for him. So these dimensions of manager alignment needs to be solved for. I see those as some of the critical aspects.
Interesting. Avinash, your thoughts on this?
I would say just in terms of success of of such a program, one can look at multiple things, frankly, and the single most short-term metric that you can look at is retention of those people who are on the program, and we can talk about the others as well. But I think what usually happens, I've seen, is that we take care of the HiPos while they're on the program, and we love them, we take care of them, we make sure their experiences are well thought out and so on. But once they're off the program, it's not that they should be kind of treated in a different way than other employees. But I think in terms of just hand-holding them for the next 3 to 5 years, I think it's important for us to see the success of such programs kind of be a little bit more lasting. Yeah.
Very interesting. So to this point, Avinash, and the success factors that Hardeep also mentioned, do you think that requires some changes in the processes and the systems in place in the organization to really adopt those critical success factors in the program? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I would say that one could it's a whole systemic thing, right from the start to finish. So to what Hardeep mentioned, how do you select these people coming into the program? So whether it's just the performance ratings that you are looking at, or you have a slightly more holistic view on their leadership potential, which involves not just the performance but values, what's their ambition, are they selfless and altruistic in terms of working for people, do they have high EQ, IQ, and so on. So is there a holistic view that one takes while you are selecting people coming into the program? So that's one systemic aspect of it, and that's very, very crucial, because if you don't control that, then it's going to be garbage in, garbage out, right? So you got to make sure that you control the input extremely well, and it's important that the participants are going to have a lot of visibility to senior leaders. So the quality has to be top notch, and they also have to be role models in many ways to their peers in the organization who may be in the same function but may not be on the program. So they should feel that, hey, this person's great, and hence they are on the program. And what can I do to be on a program like that? And hence it has to be aspirational. And it can only be aspirational if the quality is maintained at that input levels. So that's one. From a systemic standpoint, one has to change those selection processes, make sure they are holistic, well aligned, and so on. Secondly is around the whole curation of their experience. So if one follows just the 70-20-10 sort of a methodology, which is, hey, what is the 70% of their development coming from, which is their roles, which they are doing on the program. And as HiPo programs, this could mean a couple of things, right? One is that you're on a 2-year structured program, in which you go through 2 or 3 rotations or 4 rotations, and you get diverse experiences. The other could be that you are not changing your core role, but you're still identified as a HiPo, and as a result of that, you gather some experiences by being part of a stretch project or assignment, or getting a mentor who's a senior leader, getting some specific training, and so on. So just that whole experience has to be curated really well, so that the 70, which is the core role assignments, are just top notch. The 20, which is the whole exposure element of it, on projects which are important for the organization, on senior leaders who can be role models, and whom from sheer osmosis they can learn the way they need to behave as leaders as they progress in their journey. And finally, just that whole education bit, which is like the 10%. And sometimes we lay a lot of emphasis on training and formal training, but I believe it's just required to sharpen your axe a little bit, and to get that additional perspective from time to time, and to make sure that that's important as well. So that's the other element which needs to be kind of really systemically defined, and made sure it's aligned to the success factors. And finally, I would say is just the managing of expectations. There could be a risk that people who are on the program, they sometimes develop a slightly superiority complex, that, hey, I am on a program like this, and I'm better than my peers who are not on the program, and that's a risk that one shouldn't fall into that trap. And hence, essentially, how do you make sure you stay humble, you stay open to feedback, and you feel fortunate and humble about the experience that the organization is giving you. So I think those are the 3 elements that one needs to align: regular feedback, making sure there's a great peer group to learn from and work with, and just that whole start to finish that one takes to make it a success.
Hardeep, we were discussing this earlier, and I think one of your point of view as well was managing expectations as a part of HiPo programs.
Yeah.
One of those 5 pillars that we were discussing earlier. Would you like to elaborate your thought process around this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how Avinash mentioned about it, about the criticality of humility, gratitude, in this entire HiPo program. And I think those are pieces sometimes we all miss, but they are very critical ones. And of course, there's this element around consequences, which comes in. That HiPo is like a 1-year membership. It's not a position for keeps. Things move, situations shift, and so will you have to earn it back continuously. Coming to this questions around expectations, I think there is an element of courage also which organizations need to demonstrate and take on. Courage in terms of communicating to the incumbent, courage in terms of communicating the process to the incumbent and to the rest of the organization, and courage in terms of taking decisions which are right for the HiPo and the HiPo program. So I think courage becomes very critical in my experience of this. The other piece is around expectations is what like what Avinash also mentioned, is that once I've gone through the program, what next for me? Yeah. So if that gets communicated not only upfront but continuously reinforced, that would have an ability to sort of lower the superiority issues to form and the superiority complex to manifest. The third aspect around expectations is that what would it take for them to continuously move ahead? Mm-hmm. And one of the best pieces we've experienced is to give them super stretch assignments. The stretch assignments for a HiPo are not stretch for them. Mm-hmm. What is super stretch for most people is what could be stretch for them. Mm. They have insatiable appetite, hunger, drive, and also agility. When you combine these two, they're powerhouses in terms of ability to perform, create, execute, quickly think through concepts, and execute as well. So those are some of the elements of the underlying aspects of a HiPo. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we show cats, super cats, and hence we keep them humble, and we also use communication as a medium to ensure that there's gratitude in the system. Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. So Hardeep, taking your cue from the fact that organizations need to show courage, I think a lot of it also depends upon the impact that you've been able to define of the program that you've done earlier, and that is probably where, of course, there's an appetite of risk, but really some data that brings in about why should there be a buy-in from the organization to really go forward with the HiPo programs. And you mentioned earlier about one of the metrics about attrition being one of them. So what has been your experience in your conversations with organizations as to how do you define the tangible impact or the ROI of HiPo programs?
Yeah, so when we look at India, talent retention, I would say one is, and talent as in HiPo retention is one. Second is, I would say, number of key positions or positions being fulfilled internally. Mm-hmm. And third, of course, is the behavior change, which is the before and after the program. These are three. The only piece is these are very market driven. So India, talent retention and talent development is very critical. For example, if you go to look at UAE, their talent acquisition is critical. So the culture, and maybe it's the laws of the land there, and the Gulf, or if you look at Middle East and the Gulf, acquiring talent is the strategy there. Developing is more so a strategy here in India. So apart from those market nuances, if I was to just come back to India, these would be the three quick factors which are tangible, which are metric driven, rather measurable, as per me.
Interesting. Avinash, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think just to add my 2 cents to what Hardeep mentioned, I would say that just the immediate performance ratings of those individuals once they come off program, it's a slightly shorter term, metric, but how are those people doing 1 year, 2 year, 3 year off program, right? Do we measure their performance ratings or not? Are they just average players who are solid contributors in the organization, or are they really showing the potential of a role model or somebody who's exceeds expectation in the organization and so on? That's one. Secondly, a lot of organizations have talent management grids that they institutionalize as a part of the talent review process. So how are they placed on the talent management grids, which is usually a balance of performance and potential, right? And sometimes also values, right? So essentially, which gives an overview as to how is the person being perceived as a holistic, well-rounded leader. So that's the second thing that one can look at from an ROI or just a metric. So if you've got 10 people on the program, you can say, hey, how are these 10 placed on the TMG, the talent management grid, and really understand that. And Thirdly, I would say to what Hardeep was also mentioning is their placement on succession plans. So how are they appearing on succession plans, and how many times and for how many positions are they appearing on succession plans in the organization? And that's again crucial. So are they being seen as somebody who can take those senior roles in the next 1 or 2 or 3 assignments, and are they seen as somebody who are a long-term player for the organization? So I would say, in addition to attrition, I would say their immediate performance ratings, placement on TMGs, and their appearance on succession plans is something which are tangible, intangible, whatever you may want to call it, but things that we need to kind of be mindful of for people who are coming off program as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that's one big piece which Avinash pointed out. Once you're out of the HiPo program, what next for you? I think that's a significant area of work in the market on that space.
Absolutely. And that just brings me to my probably...
And just to add to, sorry,
it's okay,
we're going on and on here. So
no, I think it's a very important question. That's probably the core of the conversation that we're trying to drive here. So
right. No, thanks, Megha. So just in terms of the point I was making earlier on expectation setting. So how do you position the program? Do you position the program as an accelerated growth program, or do you position the program as an accelerated development program?
Right.
Because what happens a lot of times is person may feel that, hey, I'm on this program now, I'm gonna do this for 2 years or 3 years, and then I'm on my way to become a functional leader or a vice president or whatever that of the organization in no time. So and hence the communication and the expectation is very important. Setting is very important for at that stage as well, that it's not a accelerated career growth program. It's an accelerated development program where you'll be given structured inputs in a given time frame, in a nicely curated manner. But what you do of those inputs is something which totally depends on you. So after you are off program, it's something which you have to make the most of what you've gained in the last couple 3 years, and take that forward as just like anybody else in the organization. So there should be no expectation that they will progress in a faster manner than anybody else. Absolutely not. It should be a level playing field after that. So I think that's something which is crucial as well, as one looks at just that expectation setting and what you do after the program as well. Yeah.
Very interesting. So Avinash, according to you, what should be the role of the sponsor once the HiPo program is over? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I would say the most critical role, just the one most important role of a sponsor, just as the HiPo program or development program is coming to an end, is to make sure that they secure a great role for the participant of program. I think that's very, very crucial, because I have seen cases where great person, high potential, has a long runway in the organization, but they probably had some expectation mismatch on what they should have got off program and what they did get off program, and hence did not lead to a great end of that person's tenure in the organization. So I think that's something which is going to be very crucial, which is to make sure that they get a good start off program. And then beyond that, I would say, is something which the incumbent should take forward themselves in terms of how do they leverage what they've learned, the networks that they've built, the perspective that they've gained of the organization. Using all of those things, they need to take it forward and manage their own career and take their careers in their own hands. So that's, I think, is the most crucial role of a sponsor in the whole piece, in the HiPo program. Yeah.
Hardeep, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Avinash, completely in agreement with Avinash. Just to add to that is that the sponsor needs to see this as a 5-6 year game he or she is playing. So once the program is over, very quickly start the next one, and do this for 3-4 cycles, so that there is such a lot. There is critical mass in the organization, and there are enough cats around. Yeah.
Fantastic. So that really brings me to the closure of this conversation. Any closing thoughts from either of you?
Well, I would say that this is an investment. This is a big investment that any organization makes in individuals, and it has to be done with a very thoughtful and well-structured manner, and it has to be institutionalized. It cannot be a one-off sort of an investment. So one has to make sure that no matter when the business is up or down, the input into the program remains, right? So that when the times are good, you have people, a bench of people who would take your organization forward and to the next level. So I would say it has to be long-term and institutionalized. And from a participant standpoint, one should make the most of the opportunity and really gain from whatever's been thrown at them, and essentially take it in their own hands and not really depend upon the organization saying that, hey, you want to manage my career, what is the organization doing for me, but really saying, hey, I am someone who's going to take charge and utilize the resources, the leaders, the network that I've built to take my career forward. So I would say, yeah, those couple of things. Yeah.
Closing thoughts from you, Adi?
Yeah, I just have a very philosophical view on this. I think this is God's work. To develop someone and to be a part of that journey is phenomenal. Very few people get that. And be it the sponsor, be it the HR person, be it the individual, or be it the trainer or the facilitator or the coach, whoever is on this journey, I think it's a phenomenal journey. And like Avinash said, I'll borrow this from Avinash, that it's one needs to have gratitude for the people who are going through the journey. And there's this tremendous sense of responsibility for people who are designing and running the program. So gratitude plus responsibility, I think this would give institutionalized, sustainable results, both for the individual and the organization.
Yeah. Very well said. Thank you so much, Hardeep and Avinash. It was a wonderful conversation and I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope our viewers also enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And this really brings us to the closure of HiPo Week 2017. I would like to thank our partner, Right Management India, for bringing in their expertise and experience and helping us design this initiative year after year. We will be back with HiPo Week in the next year as well with many more interesting conversations. So see you next year.